California and Florida are the two most talked about states in America when it comes to people leaving. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a headline. California is dying. Florida is booming. Pack your bags and head south. But here is what the data actually says in 2026. California lost approximately 230,000 net domestic residents per year to other states. That has been consistent for over a decade. Florida lost 511,000 residents in 2023 alone, the largest outflow in the state's history and the second highest of any state in the country behind only California. Both states are bleeding people. But the reasons are completely different and the consequences are not the same. California is losing residents to cheaper states, but its economy keeps growing and its home values keep holding. Florida is losing working-age residents to North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia, while replacing them with retirees who spend less and earn less. One of these states is losing people but staying rich. The other is losing people and getting weaker. And by the end of this video, you will know which state people are actually fleeing permanently and which one is going through a correction it will survive. Let us get into it. California's exodus is real. Nobody is denying that. Approximately 230,000 more Americans leave California than move in every single year. The top destinations are Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. The reasons are straightforward. Housing costs that are double or triple the national average, state income tax rates that run up to 13.3%, and a cost of living that makes even six-figure earners feel stretched. Remote work poured gasoline on the fire during the pandemic. Tech workers who used to pay $3,500 a month for a one-bedroom in San Francisco realized they could do the same job from Austin or Boise and buy a house with a yard. But here is what the headlines never include. Until recently, international immigration more than offset those domestic losses. In prior years, California received over 350,000 international immigrants annually, keeping the total population growing. That number dropped to roughly 109,000 in the most recent data, which tipped California into a net population decline of about 9,000 for the first time in the modern census era. That sounds alarming until you look at what actually happened to the state's economy. Nothing. California's GDP is still the fifth largest in the world. Apple, Google, Meta, and Netflix did not move to Boise. Venture capital investment in the Bay Area still exceeds every other region in America combined. The state is not emptying out. It is trading middle-income domestic residents for international ones, many of whom arrive with advanced degrees and tech skills. California is losing a popularity contest, but it is not losing the war. Now look at Florida. During the pandemic, Florida was the undisputed champion of domestic migration. Over 300,000 net new residents arrived in 2022 alone. People left New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and California in droves. They came for no income tax, cheap homes, warm weather, and the promise of a better life. Florida's population growth was the biggest story in American real estate. But by 2025, that number collapsed to roughly 22,000 net domestic migrants, a 93% decline. United Van Lines, which tracks millions of moves, now classifies Florida as a balanced state, meaning roughly equal numbers of people are moving in and out. That has never happened before in modern Florida history. The Florida Chamber of Commerce's own migration report confirmed the shift. In 2023, 637,000 people moved to Florida from other states, but 511,000 left. That is the largest outflow of residents the state has ever recorded. And here is the part that should worry Florida more than anything. The people coming in have higher incomes than the people going out. That sounds like a win until you realize what it means in practice. The state is becoming more expensive for everyone who stays because the new arrivals are bidding up prices, while the workers who keep the economy running are being priced out. North Carolina is the #1 destination for people leaving Florida, followed by Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas. The difference between who is leaving each state tells you everything about where things are headed. The people leaving California are primarily middle-income earners, remote workers, and retirees cashing out homes worth $800,000 to $1.2 million. They sell, move to Texas or Arizona, buy a cheaper home, and pocket $500,000 in cash. This hollows out California's middle class, but it does not collapse the economy because the industries that generate the state's wealth are not leaving with them. The tech sector, entertainment, biotech, agriculture, and the largest port complex in America are all physically anchored in California. The state's tax base remains massive because the top 1% of earners pay roughly 50% of all income tax revenue. As long as that top tier stays, and they are staying, the outflow of middle-income residents is painful but survivable. California is losing people but keeping the money. Florida's equation is different. The people leaving Florida are workers, ages 25 to 45, teachers, nurses, service workers, tradespeople, and mid-level professionals. They are leaving because the cost of living caught up to the states they originally fled. Insurance premiums averaging $7,562 per year are pushing home ownership out of reach. Rising property taxes, skyrocketing HOA fees, and condo special assessments are hitting families who moved to Florida thinking it was going to stay cheap. The people replacing them are retirees who do not participate in the labor force and spend less per capita than working families. A state that imports retirees and exports workers is building a demographic time bomb. Florida's economy runs on tourism, construction, and real estate transactions. All three of those industries require a workforce that can afford to live in the state. When your teachers cannot afford rent in the city where they teach, when your nurses drive 90 minutes to the hospital because they cannot afford housing nearby, you have a structural problem that no income tax rate can fix. The housing markets tell the real story. California's statewide median home price is projected to hit $905,000 in 2026, a new record according to the California Association of Realtors. Despite a decade of outmigration, California home values have held or increased because supply is permanently constrained by geography, zoning, and the Prop 13 lock-in effect that discourages existing homeowners from selling. In February 2026, California homes were selling at 99.7% of list price, with 35% going above asking. Now look at Florida. The FHFA House Price Index fell 2.3% year over year, while the national index rose 2.2%. Tampa posted 13 consecutive months of price declines, the steepest of any city in the Case-Shiller 20 Metro Composite. Cape Coral dropped 7.1%. Florida condo markets are sitting on 13.2 months of supply, with prices down 6.1% and 92% of major condo markets declining. California is losing people and gaining value. Florida is losing momentum and losing value. The housing market is the ultimate scoreboard, and right now, California is winning despite every headline telling you the opposite. Insurance is the factor that is driving people out of Florida permanently, not temporarily. The average Florida homeowner premium hit $7,562 per year in 2026. Over 20 carriers have pulled out, gone bankrupt, or stopped writing new policies since 2022. Premiums have jumped 57% since 2015, nearly triple the national average increase. Coastal properties regularly exceed $10,000 to $15,000 per year, and flood insurance is always separate. Some zip codes are becoming functionally uninsurable, meaning you cannot close a mortgage and you cannot sell. That is not a soft market. That is a broken transaction chain. Citizens Property Insurance announced an 8.7% rate decrease for 2026, the first cut in a decade, and that is a positive sign. But even with that decrease, Florida remains the most expensive state for homeowner insurance in America by a wide margin. California has wildfire risk in specific zones, but the vast majority of the state carries normal insurance between $1,200 and $2,500 per year. Insurance is the #1 reason Florida residents cite when they consider leaving, ahead of heat, hurricanes, and general cost of living. And the condo crisis is creating a class of permanent Florida refugees. Post-Surfside legislation now requires structural inspections and fully funded reserves for every condo building 3 stories or higher. Special assessments of $50,000 to $200,000 per unit are being levied across the state. HOA fees are doubling and tripling. Entire buildings in Miami Beach and Fort Lauderdale are seeing mass sell-offs as owners who cannot pay are forced out. Many of these owners are retirees who moved to Florida specifically for affordable condo living. They are not relocating to another Florida condo. They are leaving the state entirely. North Carolina, Tennessee, and the Carolinas coast are absorbing these condo refugees at a pace that nobody predicted 5 years ago. The states that are actually winning this migration war are the ones nobody talks about. North Carolina gained over 145,000 new residents and ranked #1 in the country for total population growth. South Carolina grew at 1.5%, the fastest rate of any state. Tennessee gained over 207,000 net domestic migrants between 2020 and 2023. Idaho grew at 1.4%. These states are winning because they offer what both California and Florida promise, but fail to deliver at a price people can actually afford. Lower housing costs than California, lower insurance than Florida, 4 seasons, growing job markets, and tax structures that do not punish you for existing. The retirement migration pattern is no longer a 2-state race. It is a 5 or 6 state competition, and both California and Florida are losing ground to states that 10 years ago were not even in the conversation. So here is the verdict. California's outmigration is real, consistent, and driven by cost. But the state's economy and housing market absorb the losses because the wealth-generating industries are not leaving. The people who leave California are being replaced by international immigrants, and the tax base stays intact because high earners stay. California is expensive and it is losing people, but it is not weakening. Florida's outmigration is newer, accelerating, and driven by structural problems that price cuts alone cannot fix. Insurance crisis, condo assessments, heat, and a workforce exodus are all hitting at the same time. The people leaving Florida are not being replaced at the same rate. Domestic in-migration collapsed 93% from its peak. Florida is still growing in total population, but the quality of that growth has changed. More retirees, fewer workers, less spending power per capita. California is the state people leave by choice because they found something cheaper. Many of them would come back if prices dropped. Florida is becoming the state people leave because they cannot afford to stay, and they are not coming back because the costs that push them out are structural, not cyclical. The state everyone thought was collapsing is surviving. The state everyone thought was booming is the one showing real cracks. California is losing a popularity contest. Florida is losing a math problem, and only one of those is fixable. Drop a comment and tell me which state you think is in worse shape long term. Subscribe if you want the real numbers, no politics, no hype, just data. We will see you in the next one.